interested in alchemy first or surrealism?
It's got so mixed up over the years, this whole thing. It's difficult to know quite which came first. I know that from being very young, I was always aware of there being another dimension to the way that we perceive things. I was always a person who had a vivid dream life. The imagery that came forward in dreams was always something that somehow hung on and clung to the daylight after the night had gone, and found its way in all kinds of strange ways into my life. And when I became an art student, because I was going to make a profession of painting, and obviously I studied the history of art as part of the course that I had to do, and I came across Cocteau during that period. What happens is you see images and you don't need a teacher to say to you, well, this actually means this, and what the artist was trying to do is say this and say the other, whatever. The image just shouts at you and you recognize it instantly, and you don't necessarily analyze and make a list of what that image means, but it says, hi, you know me. And that, within surrealism and within various people's work, Cocteau's in particular, at that time, there was this sense of recognition, this sort of welcoming home, and it tied in with the dream life, and it tied in with experiences in childhood, which in childhood I couldn't articulate, I could only experience. They were pure experiences, and music became a vehicle for that. Painting was a vehicle for it. And then as I started to get more, I got involved with mainstream religion for a while. My first wife was involved with a Pentecostal fundamentalist church, which now to me seems the most absurd thing for me to get involved with. But for a while I didn't. I think I did it mainly because it was a way to sort of show that I was interested in her life and all,
open-minded,
so on and so forth. Yeah, I ended up playing in a church band. But people talked about being saved, and I was trying to figure out, well, what from? And they'd have to testify and give testimonies, and they would stand up and say, I used to go to football matches and shout, but now I'm a good person because Jesus saved me. I thought, what from shouting at football matches? There's nothing wrong with that. And I never felt that I had to fake it. I said, well, what can I say? Was it some horrible thing I've done? And I'd only done the sort of ordinary, everyday horrible things that everybody does, selfish things that you do, but nothing particularly dramatic enough to warrant saving, I feel. So anyway, I drifted away from that very quickly, didn't last very long. But I guess that was another part of this search, and then I got involved in the magical thing, particularly through the Western, the European Rosicrucian movement, which was very interesting historically as well as in terms of its philosophy, and it had a political side to it as well as a sort of socialist side to it. And I've always been a little bit left-wing, I guess, sometimes a lot so, depending. So there's all these things, and they all fit together, strangely enough. They seem like different things on the surface, but they all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle of makeup and totally.
Universal story.
Yeah.
Have you checked out the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose?
Now that's part of AMORC, isn't it? MORC, yeah, which I used to be a member of AMORC. That's how I started. That was the first occult order I joined, because it was kind of a worldwide thing, and they'd gone through a lot of troubles. I was actually a master of the local AMORC chapter in Leeds, near my hometown, for a while. And my job was to sort of guide the course of studies for the year, to lead the rituals and so on and so forth. I've never been to the place in San Jose.
They have a pyramid and everything.
Yeah, they've got the whole thing, yeah. I have friends also involved with that, and I think it's a tremendous introduction to certain aspects of this kind of study. It always worried me, the scale of the thing, the fact that there's fees to be paid, and it seemed, and in fact there was scandals some years back where it had been in the hands of a certain family who had started the actual ancient mystical order, Rosicrucianism, is the official title is. And they claimed a lineage going back through European adepts and right back to the Egyptians and so on and so forth. Proving that's impossible. And there are so many Rosicrucian groups that are spread around who claim similar lineages. I later got involved with the French, two French orders, one of which actually did initiate the guy who started them all into certain things, but not into everything. So I kind of dug further back and tried to get more to the authentic thing eventually. But now I have a totally different view of it. And, I was you wouldn't believe I was going to meetings all the time. I got different robes. I still have them hung in my wardrobe. I could.
There's a Spinal Tap thing for
yeah.
you. Those on stage.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. I've never had any credibility again after that. Really blew it. But no, I had the whole thing, and I'm not being disrespectful about it because there are people who get a tremendous amount from it. But now I find it just a little bit immature. Just I don't know why. Because I really went for it in a big way. I think it was the sense of feeling that via this costuming and it's a very hierarchical system, and the initiations you have to go certain levels of initiation, and it's kind of like, well, I've achieved this grade now, and I therefore must have some power, and in fact the opposite is true. You're getting into illusion. You get into all kinds of illusion. And I stopped going some time back getting involved. I'm still technically a member of some of these groups. But I just haven't had sort of the urge to really... I'd like to go occasionally, I think, but not to be responsible for anybody. Because the thing that it is, as you go up the ladder, then you become a master or a deputy master and so on, and then you're responsible for people. It's okay. I think we are all responsible for each other. We should care about each other. That should be a given thing, which we think about. But to be responsible for another's spiritual welfare is such a presumption. To imagine that you can pass something on to someone that will enlighten them is a total nonsense, I think. All you can do is sort of demonstrate your own experience, and if it happens to coincide with theirs, then all well and good. But everyone's got their own particular light shining, and you've no right to overshadow that with your own. So I find a good strength these days.
Do you have a favorite painter overall? If you had to pick one favorite, or artist in general?
So many. I mean, there's one English guy I like very much called Stanley Spencer. He's been dead for a long time now. I think he died in the early 60s.
You can name two or three.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Stanley Spencer. He was a visionary English painter. He painted religious scenes that were set in his home village. He lived in a village called Cocteau, and it was a very quiet English village. And he'd have a scene where Christ was carrying the cross down the high street with the butcher and the local shoemaker, all the local people, his relatives in there. And then he'd show the local churchyard as a resurrection scene, and the graves were literally opening, and there'd be people coming out and dancing and stuff. And it was this ecstatic, visionary sort of celebration. He made the dourness of Christianity seem to have some kind of colour, it was quite... And he was a very sensual guy. He actually sort of had this ongoing sexual relationship with two women, and it didn't seem to at all put the flesh behind it. So he appeals to me as well. A guy called Austin Osman Spare. These are all obscure people.
That's fine.
Austin Osman Spare was...
you mentioned him on at least one of your records.
Yeah. He was actually a prodigy as a child. He was an illustrator and artist, and he became involved in magical pursuits. He had an old lady called Necessitating, who was a kind of a crone, a wise woman, a shamanistic woman, who taught him various techniques when he was very, very young. And he developed a whole system of magic, which he briefly belonged to Crowley's order, the Astral Argentum, but then split off from that, developed his own thing, which was just for himself. He never sort of started an occult group as such. He ploughed a very unique furrow. And his magic techniques involve a lot of visual symbolism. He developed a technique for making what he calls sigils, which are kind of a design which embody a desire, and this desire can be shot off into the unconscious and find its realisation in life, a kind of wish fulfillment. And ended up a recluse, died alone in poverty. My sort of guy, basically. So that's two there. Cocteau, obviously.
Cocteau, the paintings, the theatre,
the whole lot, the whole thing. I just like the way that he had no respect for any boundaries whatsoever, and I really feel that's the way it should be. I can really admire people who specialise in one thing and they bring it to ultimate perfection. So it's very amazing and admirable, the rest of it. But I have a very short attention span with things, and I like to flip from thing to thing. So I'm a dabbler, and Cocteau was the dabbler par excellence. He had to go everything. So he appealed to me on that level, but he had no fear about that. Gosh, without my bookcase, I'm lost. I'd feel going, oh yes, I remember him, I like him. Yeah.
You mentioned you were in a Christian band earlier. I read a reference years ago that there were 2 albums you did before Northern Dream.
There was, yeah. Not my albums, but I was on them.
Okay, and are those ever going to be seen again?
They are. I believe the originals.
Was it Astral Navigation?
Astral Navigation. A to Austin.
Okay.
A to Austin, which is, I believe, Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh.
A to USDR.
Okay. It's like Girl to Grab.
Australia, yeah. Which was this communal thing that sprang up in Wakefield in the late 60s, and I was explaining to the other who came in. Basically, I came across these people by accident. I heard the music they were playing on a record player coming through a window on the street in Wakefield. Realised there was somebody else in the town that liked West Coast, what was then underground music, and I got involved with these people who were all student teachers at the time. They were still even teachers, and who were basically hippies, and smoked a lot of pot. And of course, in those days, I said, "Oh no, not for me. You go ahead though, don't." I don't do drugs, And sort of sat in there thinking, wow, this is really a happening place. Fancy this happening in my hometown. There's other people here who like this kind of music. And they made some records. They originally started out recording local folk clubs and things on a portable church, and then started doing songwriting themselves. So I could play guitar. They said, "Oh, do you need guitar now? Join in." So I played guitar on some tracks on those albums, which I believe have been reissued by the guy that originally had the studio, but I haven't seen him since those days, since the early 70s. And the originals go for a lot of money, about £800.
You had a copy of them?
I did have, but when I went to Tokyo and I divorced, I went to Tokyo for a year, and I had to leave a lot of my records in my house. Now my ex-wife says they're being stolen.
Especially the $800.
Yeah. Which may mean that they've been stolen, or may mean that she's found somebody paying.